All good things come to an end eventually, and despite the recent pandemic, 2020 is set to bring the end to the rebuild of Evangelion series with the release of the fourth movie. Many believe that the fourth movie is going to end the rebuild series, bringing the end to a decade-long era. But there is a theory that the fourth movie will open up a much larger Evangelion extended universe, which is a pretty interesting idea to see animated. However, it isn't an idea that hasn't been done before. We have actually seen an Evangelion extended universe. It's just never really been animated. Welcome back to Art Practice ASMR. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Evangelion extended universe. Like I said at the beginning, this video is all about the extended universe of Evangelion. But before I dip into that topic, I want to explain what I'm drawing right here. I am currently putting colors onto a redrawn version of a panel from a manga called Neon Genesis Evangelion Campus Apocalypse. This is my interpretation of a scene where Shinji first witnesses an angel. And I call it my interpretation because I took a few creative liberties with it, although for the most part, it is as faithful to the original as I could be. But that's enough about that. I will talk more about Campus Apocalypse later on in the video. For now, let's get started talking about the extended universe. The concept of an Evangelion extended universe may be new to anime-only fans, but for the people who have dipped their toes into other media, we know that there is quite a weird and diverse range that the extended universe kind of extends to. For this video, I just want to go over a few of the titles and oddities that exist in this universe. And I will start off with some of the obvious or most famous ones. So to start off this video, I want to tell you about the Neon Genesis Evangelion manga. It originally started as a companion to the anime series, something to help promote the series and gain new watchers. It actually started to take some liberties with how characters were presented, such as Kaoru appearing earlier in the manga than he did in the show. There were also differences in how some characters act. For example, Kaoru was much more ignorant of how humans act, rather than his anime counterpart where he was much more suave, I guess. Sure, that's a good way to put it. Anyway, there were also differences such as Yui having a presence inside of EVA Unit 1. And there are also quite a few other changes that go on, but they kind of dip into spoiler territory, and believe it or not, I haven't actually read this manga, so that would spoil quite a bit for me. Anyway, another well-known parallel universe in the Evangelion multiverse would be the very weird Schick razor ads that they had during the promotion of the third movie. There was an ad campaign that came out around the time of the third movie called the Shave Impact. It was a series of ads that used footage from the movie as well as a few very weird animated sequences featuring Gendo Ikari shaving off his beard with Schick razors. The only reason I'm really mentioning this as a parallel universe or part of the extended multiverse is because, in America at least, these ads kind of made waves as a very weird part of Japanese media. so I thought it was worth mentioning. So, getting back on track, I've already mentioned the official manga, but did you know that there is an official sequel to Evangelion? Before the movies started taking liberties with how the future of Eva is portrayed, there was a series of light novels called Evangelion Anima. They actually have recently been published in English. I'm not sure how many volumes are out right now, but I know that the first volume was released in 2019. So, Evangelion Anima, also known as Evangelion 3 Years After, is actually a pseudo-sequel to the original storyline. It takes place in a universe where the instrumentality never occurred, and Kaji was never killed. So it's a world where the storyline just continues, but 3 years after the series would have ended in the main timeline. I haven't read it myself yet, as it had only recently been brought to America in English, but I do know a few of the concepts from the storyline, and it's pretty weird. I know that all of the characters are aged up a little bit. As far as I've heard, Asuka had somehow overcome her childhood trauma. In this story, the Rei clones all take more of a part in the story. It's not just one singular Rei walking around doing all of the action. There are multiple Reis all helping out. Now, that's not that weird, but this story does delve into a lot of weird concepts, such as the expansion of the Evangelion series, meaning the actual robots within the show. There are a ton of crazy alternate versions of the robots, some of which have actually been turned into figures that you can buy. I think the weirdest new Evas that they have introduced are Evas that have taken the form of the pilots. I know for sure that Asuka has one of these Evas that uses her form, which basically turns her into a giant armored Eva woman. Like I said, I haven't actually read this, as the English translation is fairly new. But eventually, when all the volumes are translated, I would love to talk about this in depth in another video. Before I change subjects to another story in the Eva universe, I found it interesting that apparently Evangelion Anima may have the first introduction of the character Mari, who appeared in the second movie. I may have my timelines off though, as I'm getting most of this information from the wiki pages, but it seems like this light novel introduced the character. Although the Mari who appears in the light novels is not the same as the Mari who appears in the movie. The one who appears in the movie is much older. Anyway, moving on to another piece of Evangelion lore. While we're on the topic of pseudo-sequels to Evangelion, let me tell you about Angelic Days, also known as Girlfriend of Steel and Iron Maiden. Angelic Days started out as a video game series that was inspired by the events of the final episodes of Evangelion. There is a scene where Shinji is shown different alternate universes, and one of them takes the more traditional route of a harem comedy anime. And Angelic Days basically is an adaptation of that specific storyline, where it is Shinji and his childhood friend Asuka going to school. Then the mysterious new student Rei shows up, and there begins a love triangle between Shinji, Asuka, and Rei. Angelic Days started out as 2 video games, but then they were adapted to a manga series of the same name. As far as I know, those are the last of the extended universe entries that directly relate to the original series. The rest of the topics I'm going to tell you about are all stories that were created by individuals who were licensed by Studio Khara to write original stories in the Evangelion multiverse. One of which is a comedy story called Petite Eva at School, which is kind of a chibi school time comedy series where different characters from the Evangelion series are reimagined as students at a middle school. Now you're probably thinking, weren't the characters already middle school students? Yes, but this series kind of takes further steps where even the Evas are upperclassmen at this school. If you're having a hard time picturing this, just think of the similar show made by Attack on Titan. It's basically the same concept. Funny enough, at the beginning of the video, I said that most of these had not been animated, but Petite Evangelion has actually received an OVA with like 5 or 6 shorts that are all 3 minutes long, give or take. Beyond that comedy series, there is also a manga series called Evangelion, The Legend of the Piko Piko Middle School Students. I have not read this, but funny enough, I discovered this because Amazon kept recommending I buy it. Like I said, I haven't read it, but apparently the synopsis of this story is all about an alien invasion taking place on Earth, and it's up to all of these middle school students to train to take out these invaders, and they do so by playing video games. This is one of those stories where I'm not really sure why it exists, or why it had to be Evangelion related, and it's just kind of an oddity that exists in this franchise. But that's not all. I have one final story to tell you guys about, and this is one that I have actually read the entirety of, so it's fresh in my head. I'm going to tell you about Neon Genesis Evangelion Campus Apocalypse, which is once again what I am drawing here. Campus Apocalypse is kind of a manga where I read it and wondered why it even existed. And this video originally was supposed to be about the manga series in its entirety, but my research kind of turned up no facts about why this was even made. In fact, it was actually pretty hard to find out why any of these stories were made in the first place, because some of them are such weird outliers in this franchise. Anyway, Campus Apocalypse is all about Shinji Ikari, a middle school or high school student whose mother has passed away and his dad is overseas, so he lives with a caretaker named Kaji, who is never home due. Shinji goes to a Catholic high school called the Nerve Academy, where he has fellow classmates such as Rei and Asuka. The story starts when he catches Rei out at night, hanging out with a strange white-haired boy. He sees them running around with a spear and a sword, and he really questions what they're even doing. The next day, it felt that this boy is named Kaoru, and he is a new student at their school. He takes Shinji by the arm and tells him all about what they had been doing that previous night. It turns out that there is a secret alliance at the Nerve Academy where all of these students are being taught to wield weapons called Evas. So far, there are only 4 students who can do it. There's Asuka, Rei, Kaoru, and Shinji. For the most part, the story is about these 4 kids using their Eva weapons to hunt down angels, which are these jewels that embed themselves into humans and take them over like some sort of mind parasite. The story is okay. I felt like it touched on a lot of interesting concepts, but it never really got anywhere good. I think the most interesting concept that the manga touched on was its kind of introduction to an extended universe. You find out that Gendo Ikari died along with Yui during this crazy experiment at the Nerve headquarters, and it turns out that the Gendo Ikari that you come to know in the manga is from an alternate universe. He traveled to this universe to bring back his wife. So, although I wouldn't say this was a good story, I would say that it had a few good moments. Anyway, that's all I can say for this video. Thanks for watching. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more. Goodbye.